Oh, I just so have to make this video. Folks, one post 4 hours ago, 6 o'clock in the morning here. And as a former New Jersey firefighter, I can tell you, high-rise buildings do not go down from the kind of fires that we saw here. Doesn't happen. Spine was snapped. All the columns were blown. You saw the inside. See that penthouse go down first. If people still believe that that went down because of an office fire, there's serious cognitive dissonance. So let's just very quickly look at some of that cognitive dissonance and the reaction to it, because it is very much a psychological condition. Okay, I'm not going to repeat the comment made here, but F you for posting this on this day. Give it a rest. Okay. What day should I post it on? This day is the most appropriate day to post it. I'll give you one warning because I don't believe in censoring people. Do not curse on my timeline. So he'll save me the trouble and he blocks me. Because you see, that's what people with cognitive dissonance, that's what happens. They cannot handle or confront or discuss facts. And this is why I do this. I'm so tired of talking about it. We're 2017 and we're still talking about this. But it needs to be done. Some people called him out on the anger. I appreciate that. So, of course, they respond by, you're a nut job. I have no respect for the ones that I died, even though the ones that died trained me in my firefighting courses and they were killed that day. You absolute scumbag for saying something like that, not even knowing who you're talking to. So my response was this. Strange times are these in which we live, when old and young are taught falsehoods in school, and the person that dares to tell the truth is called at once a lunatic and a fool. This is Plato. Very long time ago. The one that dares to tell the truth is at once called a lunatic and a fool. Cognitive dissonance is nothing new. So I'm called a sick bastard, and F me, and I said to him, no thank you, I'm married and I don't partake in men, as you apparently wish to do. And then call someone else on my timeline a nut job. So, very interesting progression here. And this, ladies and gentlemen, my response is why we have fought so long and hard to bring truth to light. People like David Story, who believes the story of the lies we've been told. Our fallen brothers? Who cares about them as long as David feels aren't hurt? Cognitive dissonance in action. And here's another conspiracy theory. He's not a conspiracy theorist. He's a structural engineer. Because I've spoken to a ton of them. Structural engineers. So, Tom Miller, I have no harsh words for you. You were respectful, and I appreciate that. He says it wasn't controlled demolition. If you focus the heat and the flames upward through the elevator shafts, the temperature can be greatly increased. Where is the evidence of this? He goes on to say controlled demolitions would have taken an evacuation of the towers and weeks of setting up explosives and wires on all the floors. Very good point. Thank you for recognizing that, because that's very true. Would have taken some time, and there were strange activities going on in all of the towers, and the security cameras were turned off, and all kinds. I mean, the people who have researched this knows this really well. And then he goes on to say, I go on to say his analysis is flawed because he's eliminating the possibility to also a complete improbability. The core columns were destroyed. It collapsed directly in its own footprint. The office fires I saw simply cannot do this, no matter how uncomfortable this may seem. And then he goes on to say that the builders skimped on fire retardant and used cheap materials. I end up asking him what specific cheap materials he's referring to, where the evidence of these so-called cheap materials, this is cognitive dissonance reasoning. Why did Larry Silverstein have plans to rebuild the tower prepared a year before this happened?
And so, next thing you know, we've got the designs of a building. And the first design meeting was in April of 2000. And construction began shortly thereafter in 2002. But we ran into a problem. We couldn't collect the insurance because the insurance companies didn't want to pay. There were 22 insurance companies defending, 22 insurers who didn't want to pay their obligations under the policies. And so they took me to court. And I had to beat them in court, the lower court, and then had to take an appeal and win in the upper court. So they owed me $4.5 billion. A new governor was just elected. Elliot Spitzer, an old friend who I knew well. And I said, Elliot, if you don't help me, I'll never collect from the insurance companies. And guess what? He listened, and he said, you know what? You're entitled. I'm going to get you the money. And in 6 months, he got me the $4.5 billion. The insurance companies didn't like me, but at least I got the money.
Why were Israelis arrested with a truckload of explosives en route to the George Washington Bridge?
Law enforcers found tons of explosives inside of the van. 2 to 3 people in custody.
And word late tonight that 2 suspects are in FBI custody after a truckload of explosives was discovered around the George Washington Bridge. That bridge links New York to New Jersey over the Hudson River. Whether the discovery of those explosives has anything to do with other events today is unclear, but the FBI has 2 suspects in hand, said the truck load of explosives, enough explosives were in the truck to do great damage to the George Washington Bridge. But they arrested the 2 suspects and they're questioning them as we speak.
Our apologies to our viewers about 5 minutes ago, but we do have an established connection now with CNN's Deborah Fabry. The reports we're getting now, 2 or 3 men arrested on the New Jersey Parkway. Deborah, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. That is the information that I'm getting from 2 sources, that there was a van either on the New Jersey Turnpike or the Garden State Parkway, and that it was near the George Washington Bridge. There were 2 or 3 men who were in the van. The van was pulled over. It is not clear why the van was pulled over, but when it was, law enforcers found tons of explosives inside of the van. That is right now all I'm hearing, but again, 2 to 3 people in custody, and we are trying to get more information on that right now.
Deborah, I don't mean to put you on the spot here. Do you know where on the Jersey Turnpike this was? How far from New York City?
We do not know that. We are looking into that. There is one report that it was on the New Jersey Turnpike. There is another report that it was very close to the bridge, if not on the bridge. So again, these details are all emerging, and we're trying to piece them together. But that's what we've got so far. 2 to 3 people in custody right now, found with a van filled with explosives.
All right, well understood.
And all of a sudden, down there, I see this van parked. And I see 3 guys on top of the van, and I could see that they were like happy. You know, they didn't look shocked to me. You know, they didn't look shocked. I thought it was very strange.
We had received an all points bulletin, and I just happened to see the van, and hollered over to my lieutenant, I think that could be the van. We checked it out, and it was. We were all on edge, obviously, so I really wasn't looking to make friends with these people, and neither were the officers that I were with. Once we started talking to them, they were pretty much like, hey, we're not against you, we're with you. We're not against you, we're with you.
And at that point, we were taken for another round of questioning, this time related to our allegedly being members of Mossad. The fact of the matter is, we are coming from a country that experiences terror daily. Our purpose was to document the event. Our purpose was to document the event.
That's affirmative. Who's flagging you down? PD. Alright, 292 and ladder 162. We'll give you a box. 10-4. 135 to Manhattan. 135.
Find a message about the plane. Central, we need the bomb squad and ESU over King and... 9414, hold up. Five the message about the remote control plane. Jason Torres on the air. Central, I got a message on that plane. It's a big truck with a mural painted of an airplane diving into New York City and exploding. I don't know what's in the truck. The truck is in between 6th and 7th on King Street. Alright, 10-4, I'll send you in the bus right there for Westgate. With a mural painted airplane diving into New York, blowing up. Two men got out of the truck, ran away from it. We got those two under. Good. You got those? Are you holding those two guys, Kay? We got them under. Let's get some units over here. Listen to that. Fucking beat the shit out of them. Alright, you listen, you need any further on those two guys over there? You alright over there, Kay? Yeah, both suspects under, Kay. We have the suspects who drove in the van exploded. We have both of them under, Kay. Let's get some help over here. Now, I'm sending you ESU there. I just want to make sure you and your guys are alright over there, Kay. That's all. What's the location, right, Kay? Put them up. We have both transits driven that exploded. Resurrect? What location? The location, kid.
Why were they immediately deported back to Israel? Why did Larry Silverstein say to pull it? And furthermore, if this was the case, can someone please then tell me if our government would never take part in anything like this? Why on God green earth would Operation Northwoods have been planned, and why would it look so familiar to the pattern that we saw take place on 9/11? These guys had meetings about doing this very exact thing. Suggested course of action, this is in Cuba. appended enclosure A are based on the premise that U.S. military intervention will result from a period of heightened U.S.-Cuban tensions which place the United States in the position of suffering justifiable grievances. World opinion in the United Nations Forum should be favorably affected by developing an international image of the Cuban government as rash and irresponsible and as alarming and as unpredictable threat to the peace of the Western Hemisphere. So how would they accomplish achieving that objective? We're going to see here. Okay, so this plan incorporating projects selected from the attached suggestions or from other sources should be developed to focus all efforts on a specific ultimate objective which would provide adequate justification for U.S. military intervention. Such a plan would enable logical buildup of incidents to be combined with other seemingly unrelated events to camouflage the ultimate objective and create the necessary impression of Cuban rashness and irresponsibility on a large scale directed at other countries as well as the United States. They were talking about propagandizing our own people here. Okay. It goes on. Bear with me. So harassment plus deceptive actions to convince the Cubans of imminent invasion would be emphasized. Our military posture throughout the execution of the plan would allow rapid change from exercise to intervention if Cuban response justifies. 2. A series of well-coordinated incidents will be planned to take place in and around Guantanamo to give genuine appearance of being done by hostile Cuban forces. That is a lie to accomplish this. Now, I'm anti-communist as much as you could possibly imagine, but this is war by deception. So incidents to establish these credible attacks: start rumors, you use clandestine radio or radio talk show hosts, land friendly Cubans in uniform over the fence to stage an attack on the base, capture Cuban-friendly saboteurs inside the base, start riots near the base, blow up ammunition inside the base, burn aircraft, sabotage, sink ship near the harbor entrance, and it goes on. Hold on. It gets better. You know, people talk about Operation Northwoods, but they don't really, dig into the meat and potatoes of it too much. And that should be done more. So they go on to say, where is it? Okay, here we go. We're getting into it now. All right. An aircraft at Eglin Air Force Base would be painted and numbered as an exact duplicate for a civil registered aircraft belonging to a CIA proprietary organization in the Miami area. At a designated time, the duplicate would be substituted for the actual civil aircraft and would be loaded with the selected passengers, all boarded under carefully prepared aliases. The actual registered aircraft would be converted to a drone. B. Takeoff times at the drone aircraft and actual aircraft will be scheduled to allow a rendezvous south of Florida. From the rendezvous point, the passenger-carrying aircraft will descend to a minimum altitude and go directly in an auxiliary field at Eglin Air Force Base, where arrangements will have been made to evacuate the passengers and return the aircraft to its original status. The drone aircraft, meanwhile, will continue to fly. The filed flight plan when over Cuba, the drone will begin transmitting the international distress frequency, a Mayday message stating he is under attack by Cuban MiG aircraft. A lie. The transmission will be interrupted by destruction of the aircraft, which will be triggered by a radio signal, and on it goes. And by the way, Kennedy lost his brain over this. He flipped his wig. No pun intended. This was to evoke an emotional response to get the American people to back military intervention in Cuba, just like what happened in Iraq. I was duped in the beginning as well, folks. I wanted to I was so upset. But it wasn't long. It wasn't long before I realized that the words of people like William Cooper, who had predicted this exactly happening, came to light.
You know, Mark, I don't think at the beginning of the show that you read the doctor's credentials off. I wish you would, because it means a lot, and it means a lot to me to hear them.
Absolutely, and I will do that right now since I'm about to launch into reading this excellent article. Alan Sabrowski, Ph.D., University of Michigan, is a 10-year U.S. Marine Corps veteran and a graduate of the U.S. Army War College. Now, not only that, Dr. Sabrowski, correct me if I'm wrong here, not only are you a graduate of the U.S. Army War College, but you were director of studies there for some period of time. Is that correct?
That's correct, for 5.5 years.
5.5 years as director of studies at the U.S. Army War College. You know, of all the things that I would love to be able to have trailing behind my name, Dr. Sabrowski, being the director of studies at the U.S. Army War College would definitely be one of them.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
When we look at the two wars that the United States finds herself in, and on the cusp of at least two others, and all of this for the benefit of a certain foreign a country sitting on the eastern shores of the Mediterranean Sea, they have been wildly successful at bringing all of this about, and I think one of the main components of this is the fact that very few people really understand the nature of the problem. And I think that your article here basically lays out the problem, which is that when you have people who try to make this claim that they are loyal to America and at the same time loyal to a foreign government, it is a lie.
It is, and it's more than that, Mark. What we need to stand up and say is not only did they attack the USS Liberty, they did 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
They did it. I have had long conversations over the past 2 weeks with contacts at the Army War College, at Headquarters Marine Corps, and I've made it absolutely clear in both cases that it is 100% certain that 9/11 was a Mossad operation.
Mm-hmm.
Period.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you know, Phil, I don't denigrate what happened to USS Liberty in the slightest. You understand that. But for most Americans, you know, what happened to the USS Liberty or in Vietnam was history.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is history. You know, they can be concerned about it, but they're not going to get mad about it.
Right.
9/11 has led directly to 60,000 Americans dead and wounded. God knows how many hundreds of thousands of people in other countries that we've killed or wounded or made homeless.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an ongoing sore. It's not your sore from the USS Liberty. It's not my sore from Vietnam. Both of us have those. Both of us care about it. But this is an ongoing, this is an open wound. And what Americans need to understand is they did it.
Mm-hmm.
They did it. And if they do understand that, Israel's going to disappear. Israel will flat-ass disappear from this earth. If you know, I sent a film to one of my colleagues, and it basically had Americans grieving over their dead coming back.
Mm-hmm.
And I showed one of them. It was a woman just wrenched by grief, you know, over her dead soldier.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you know, if Americans ever know that Israel did this, they're going to scrub them off the earth, and they're not going to give a rat's ass, forgive my language, what the cost is. They are not going to care. They will do it.
Alan,
they should.
Alan, your article and your heart and your testimony and what you believe in is heart-wrenching to me. It is like our founding fathers in their shadows.
Get down below and you'd see
talking,
molten steel.
We have to fix this.
Molten steel running down the channel.
We have to make our own way, and we have to
like
do
it
now,
foundry,
or we will go down.
Exactly.
And
absolutely, Phil. I agree fully.
Your article needs to be shipped off to the Library of Congress immediately.
Well, I can tell you it's being read by some people in Headquarters Marine Corps and at the Army War College. I sent it off to them this past week, and I've had some long discussions with people up there, and there are some really, really unhappy people.
What are they saying? If you can talk about that, Dr. Sabrowski, what You know, I'm curious.
Astonishment. Okay. The first thing, Mark, is astonishment. They didn't know. They truly didn't know. And these are not unintelligent people. They really didn't know. And the next statement is rage. Mm-hmm. Real rage. And the Zionists are playing this as truly an all or nothing exercise. Mm-hmm. Because if they lose this one,
that's it.
If the American people ever realize what's happened, they're done.
That's it.
I have one grandparent who's Jewish.
So
it's not only a matter of blowing our cover. If Americans ever truly understand that, their history, it'll be a bloody, brutal war, and they're gone. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not even going to be a close contest.
Well,
and they know that, and what they understand, I think, as well, is that their leverage is on the political appointments. Mm-hmm. Their leverage is not in the uniformed services. There are lots. If you pick up the Army Times or the Navy Times or any of the journals of any of the services, you get a very different view than you get, looking at the Congress and the White House. Mm-hmm. And the military has not been bought. The military is loyal, but it has not been bought. Mm-hmm. And if it ever understands this, really, really deeply understands this, and this is what I got when I put some of these things to the Army War College and to Headquarters Marine Corps, and I mentioned to a contact at Headquarters Marine Corps, I said, they did 9/11. Mm-hmm. And it was, you don't mean it. I said, absolutely. And if they ever understand that, these people are history.
Well, now let me ask you something, Doctor. And obviously, I understand that we need to protect the names of the innocent here, and this is
there are no innocent.
Okay, I'd like to know a little bit more about this. I mean, these conversations that you're having with your colleagues who are still serving in uniform, what is the reaction on their part when you tell them things like this?
First, a disbelief, and what I show them immediately afterwards is an interview with a Danish demolitions expert named Danny Jowenko, and it shows the third building at the World Trade Center going down, WTC-7.
Right.
And they look at that, and I said, now you understand that if one of the buildings was wired for demolition, all of them were wired for demolition.
Right.
And that's it. Mm-hmm. That's the tipping point. Mm-hmm. I mean, getting into arguments about who was flying what and where they were and whether there was nanothermite, those things are true, but they're incidental.
Right.
The thing that's necessary is to tell people 3 buildings went down, the third was not hit by a plane, it was wired for controlled demolition, therefore all of them were wired for controlled demolition, and at that point the reaction is rage. First disbelief and then rage.
Well, I got to tell you, that I find to be very encouraging because, based upon the cursory conversations I have with some military people, and I have to be real careful about what I say because you just don't know what you're walking into when you start a discussion of this type with one of them. Based upon these, as I said, cursory conversations that I've had with some of them, they're clueless and they don't want to hear about it. They are loyal to the flag that is on their left sleeve as a patch, and the thought that the government could be in any way involved in any kind of high crimes and treason against the United States, the people of the United States, is just unthinkable to them. So I'm glad to hear that there still is some gray matter and some patriotism left, at least in the circles where you travel, Dr. Sabrowski.
Well, I mean, it's not that they don't want to hear it; it's that they don't know of it. And what I have done when I presented it to these people, and I said, just look at this. Just look at this picture. I'm not going to give you an argument. Just look at it. And they look at the film, and without exception, they come back and they say, they did it, didn't they? I said, yep, they did it.
Folks, believe what you want, but cognitive dissonance is like a brick wall. And especially, the hardest ones to convince are our fellow conservatives. They want to call you liberal, you're just a libtard. I'm a liberal. What is liberal? What does politics have to do with false flags? Absolutely nothing. He told me I believe in the liberal media. CNN is the liberal media. MSNBC is the liberal media. And they go with the official story. So what does that even mean? Wake up, please.